Before we start the show, may I ask you for a favor? Would you be willing to rate and review the podcast on the app wherever you listen to it? If you're willing to do this and send me a screenshot of your review, I will send you a Starbucks gift card in gratitude of you taking this time to do that. So it's super simple for you to do this. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, please leave a review on that app. Take a screenshot of the review and then email it to support@yoursalesmaven.com, and then we will send you back a $5 Starbucks gift card. Your ratings and reviews allow other people to take a chance and maybe listen to the podcast. So I'm so grateful if you would be willing to do this on my behalf. Thank you so much. And now please enjoy the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master the sales conversation. Today's episode is a part of my Mastering Excellence series. If you've been listening to these, I am bringing on masters at particular topics and asking them very specific questions. And the concept behind this comes from my background in neuro-linguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. So really what I'm trying to do is dig in to the structure of the excellence that these people are achieving in their life. So I'm super excited about today's episode. I am going to be talking to Melanie Benson. And if you haven't met Melanie yet, watch out, here she comes, because Melanie, here's a little bit about her bio. She is the authority amplifier for expertprenuers. I love that word. And she shows you how to stand out in a crowded market and attract high-paying clients and opportunities. Melanie has a proven track record of accelerating results for her clients. It's not uncommon for them to see 3 to 5 times revenue increases in their first 6 months. Whew, that's good. She's also the host of Amplify Your Success podcast, the author of Rewired for Health, a co-author of the best-selling Voices for the 21st Century and entrepreneurs.com startup guide to starting an information marketing business. She has been featured on Bloomberg BusinessWeek, Women's Day, and Parenting. Melanie also served as the Women's Speaker Association executive team, and you can access her 8 steps to being a highly paid authority at melaniebenson.com. Melanie, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you. And just to give a little background for the listener, we recently met. I was a guest on your podcast. I don't even think it's aired yet. I don't think it's aired
No, it
yet.
hasn't.
Yeah.
Not at this point, but
not
it will
at
be
this
soon.
point while we're recording this. But I just felt like we really hit it off, and we had a great conversation before the podcast, during the podcast, and then after, which is why I asked you if you would come and be a part of this series. So thank you for saying yes, because, she's taking a chance on somebody that she's really only interacted one time before, and then come on and said, okay, I'll let you ask me these questions.
I trust the vibe.
Okay.
I always do.
Me too. All right. So today our topic is really focusing on monetizing your superpower, which is your thing, right? And how I kind of get to this with people is I always ask them, what's the thing that you are so good at that people are always commenting on, and how do you know to do that? And that's usually that superpower in your case, or whatever the topic is we're talking about. It usually lives at it's called your unconscious competence. It's the thing that just feels very natural to you. So that's, this is Melanie's monetizing your superpower. How awesome is that? And now we get to hear how we can implement this own structure, our own version of this structure. So here's my first question for you, Melanie.
Okay.
If I was to stand in for you for a day, like imagine me stepping into your shoes, how would I have to think and behave in order to monetize my superpower?
Such a great question.
Thank you.
So when you're operating as me
Mm-hmm.
and you're monetizing your superpower, I think the first most important thing you're going to do is have absolute clarity about the thing you do so effortlessly. And here's where the magic happens, how that translates to something magnetic and irresistible to the clients you love working with the most. And when you do that, you are able to have really powerful enrollment conversations because that client recognizes you exude confidence and clarity. And they're just like, how do you do that? Like, I want some of that. And they're willing to invest at higher rates to be able to work with you or to take your program or to buy your product or whatever that is. So in a way, you're able to command a higher price and confidently stand in that because, again, you're coming from your superpower. So it's an unwavering confidence because you're like, I got this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to dig into this a little bit more.
Please.
Because when you talk about like this unwavering confidence and then being able to, charge whatever it is that you want to charge for it and really attract people, like, what do you think that is that you have that allows you to know that you have unwavering confidence? Like, what are some signals that you get for that? Like, I feel super confident about this.
Yeah. And I want to stay inside your process, but I think it's also important to say it's not that I always have unwavering confidence.
No. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Okay.
So I think, because I don't want to give anybody this unrealistic impression that if you have imposter syndrome or you're bumping into fears, that doesn't exist.
Right.
But when you're in your superpower, you know your stuff and you've designed an offering around it. Okay. So I'm sorry, I was distracted by that. Say your question one more time.
Well, it's this idea of like, what are some indicators?
How do I know I'm confident?
Yeah. Like, what's happening for you when you go like, oh, I am so there right now. Like I am just standing in it.
Yes. So for me, there is this like momentum, this ease, and I feel excited, inspired, and driven to bring it out in to more people, because there's something intrinsic inside of me that's like, I can't keep this to myself. I have to be able to help more people find this for themselves. So that's one piece of it. The confidence, I think I know the confidence is there because when somebody's asking me questions, and typically people are they're going to like want to explore, like, how could it really work for them? And they're going to have challenges of their own because it's not their superpower. Right. They don't do it as easily. And my confidence doesn't waver when their challenges grow or their process isn't working for them in that moment. I just look at other ways to help them achieve the monetization of their superpower. So I don't doubt my superpower. I might doubt other things. I might have fears and things that come up, but I'm so clear about this. Like, it's like, okay, if that path doesn't work, we're just going to find another way. Okay. And I know I'm not in my confidence because if I'm not in my superpower, the doubts go up.
So I think this is all really like gold nuggets that you're leaving here for us as the listener. So just a comment for you, the listener, just, you and I chatting here is what I hear in some of the things that Melanie is sharing is that place where it doesn't necessarily matter what people's objections are. It doesn't matter what their concerns are. It doesn't cause you to waver in your confidence. And that's when you know that you're really standing in that place of authority of like you so believe in what it is that you are offering or doing that you're not like, okay, so from an NLP standpoint, you would say you're very internally focused in this matter. Yeah. Like it's not other people's opinions, other people's responses they don't carry as much weight in that moment as what your own opinion is, because you're so congruent. Would you agree with that? And I know you have a background in NLP too, Melanie.
Yeah, so. I would agree. And the other thing is it feels easy versus effortful.
Yes.
So efforting is often needed when we're moving outside of our superpower and we're going to expand our superpowers or we're going to add something, we're trying new things. We're growing. That requires efforting. When I am in my superpower, I literally, and I'm a through time person. So I know exactly where I am in time all the time. Like I know when I need to be somewhere, I'm always on time or 5 minutes early. Like I'm uncomfortable if I am not on time. When I am in my superpower, I can slide in time, meaning I completely lose track of where I am.
Okay.
And I think there's a quality. I did some work with a coach one time early on in my career. And he said, what is the thing that you do when you completely lose track of time and it brings you the most joy and you're so in the moment, you don't know anything else going on around you? And I realized like when you're in your superpower, that's what it feels like. You literally feel like it is so effortless and so joyful and so fulfilling. You're like, I could do it and never be paid for it. But you want to be paid for it.
Oh, of course you want to be paid for it. And frankly, you should be paid for it because people will value it. The people who are paying you will value whatever it is that you're delivering at a much higher level. So yes, you absolutely want to be paid. And that makes sense to me. So I'm wondering for you as the listener, like, are there places and times in your life where you can easily just lose track of time? So like one example that comes to mind is that friend you haven't seen in a while, but you just like when you get together, it's like no time has passed and you can sit down and think, okay, so we're just going to have like an hour-long chat. 3 hours go by, you look at the time and you're like, what happened? That's being in time in those moments. So most of us, I think, can relate to some kind of an experience that's like a personal, but there's parts in your business where you can like look, be doing something and look up and be like, wait, I thought 10 minutes has gone by. And I just went, it's like all this time has passed. Where did the time go? Because you're so in it in the moment. Would you agree that that's like, those are some of those superpower moments?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about what are those moments in your business and how can you do more of that and, or monetize that in a like elevated way, right? How can you scale that in an elevated way?
I just thought of another component of it that might help.
Okay.
I think the other way, like I feel my confidence is because people come to me and say, that seems easy for you. And I struggle with this. Can you show me how to do what you're doing? Or can you coach me on this? Because this is not an area that I feel good at. And so you feel like you're being valued and appreciated for something that other people don't like do well or know how to do yet. And I think that's a big clue that you have a superpower, and it opens up that what I call that bridge to recognize, okay, I'm good at this and people need it. Because a superpower that isn't monetizable is just for you. Like it's a joyful thing, but it's not going to be a part of the business. It's not the thing that translates to an irresistible offer. So we want to to monetize your superpower, we got to find the bridge between those two worlds. And that's one clue that, okay, we're on the right track. So when I do like sometimes the way I do this is I do them inside like a VIP day, or I'm like taking a client into a deep dive and I'm going to ask them a series of questions to help find where do they feel most confident in their experience with a potential client or with clients. So that's just another way I access it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So that also makes me think of that, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought of where I was going with this. It's this idea of when you are getting external feedback. So even though I talked about this being internally referenced, of like, you just know, even when people are questioning or when they're not as confident, but sometimes how you'll start to know that people will value it and pay for it is they make some of these comments that Melanie just gave us. Is they'll be like, that seems so easy for you. And I know in my own business, like I never, ever set out to rewrite my clients' emails from a sales perspective. Like I didn't even know people would want me to help them with that. But I recognized pretty quickly that once people kept commenting of like, how do you know to phrase it that way? Or how can you take this sentence, Nikki, and change it? And it's like, oh, wow, that sounds better. It lands better. People are responding more. Like that was through external feedback that became very much a part of my offering. But that would have never been my offering to begin with. It was only through doing some things like VIP days, for instance. A lot of the things I offer now have been a result of having VIP days with clients and them giving me feedback about the things they valued the most, the things that like the selling staircase. When I wrote my third book that I called it the selling staircase, actually one of my VIPs, she's the one who named it initially. Because that was like, I was just trying to come up with a structure that would make sense for her. And so I said, think of a staircase, right? And then it became this whole thing. So I love that you commented on that. So what are those things that you're also, as a listener, getting external feedback from people on that are like, ooh, that seems easy for you, or gosh, how do you know to do that? And part of you kind of feels like, what do you mean? Doesn't everybody? That's usually, I think, an indicator of like, ooh, there's probably a superpower there. Would you agree with that, Melanie?
Yes. I can think of 100 things, but I want to stay inside the context of our conversation. So I'm just waiting for you to tell me.
Okay. So
how deep you want me to go or where else you want me?
I'm going to get back to some of these questions too, for the sake of time for you too. All right. So I talked about standing in for you for a day. When you recognize this about yourself, for instance, when you start to recognize for yourself that you have some kind of like idea here that there's a superpower and there's an opportunity to monetize it, what specifically would I have to do to behave like you?
So what comes to mind, and tell me if I don't go the direction that's helpful here, but what comes to mind is when I recognize I have a superpower and it's time to monetize it, I'm first I'm going to go, I teach something called, it's like it's like the sweet spot client formula. And what I'm doing is I'm taking my superpower, my ideal client, and their most pressing problem, and I'm mapping out how does my superpower and my ideal client and their most pressing problem connect. So before I move on it, I want to test and make sure it's going to land. That they're not just saying, oh, I'm interested. They're actually going to be willing to invest in solving that problem with me. So I might first do a test. I have a big email community. So I might email my community and say, hey, I've been doing some work around this with a client. Or I might share a case study and say, is this something you too would want? And then I'm going to figure out how to package it. So I'm going to think about what's the best way that I can take this superpower and deliver a result for a client that has meaning and value they're willing to invest in. And this is what separates the being able to monetize from just having a fun superpower that you get fulfillment out of, is you need to be able to think about, how does this produce a result people will be willing to invest in? And then that usually is what leads to what we're going to call it, or how I'm going to like position and price it. And then the last thing I do once I get through those pieces is we create what I call magnetic messaging. Is I'm going to literally get into a conversation with several clients and ask them, tell me what this superpower of mine helps you accomplish. And what is that worth? Like, how do you value that? What does it allow you to do? So I'm going to get the messaging that allows me to confidently go out and monetize the superpower with clients I want to work with. Part of what I'm also doing is thinking, who is it not for? So part of the monetizing formula is who doesn't need this, who won't pay for it, who wants it but can't pay for it. And I'm looking at what do I need to do to make sure I'm not drawing the people in who are not going to be great clients for me in my messaging and my positioning.
Okay, I am like furiously writing notes here on all this great stuff.
I know that was my little formula and a big download there.
Oh, so good. Okay, so is it okay I'm going to go back through some of these things that I'm picking out. So for you as the listener, here are some things that come to mind, but super interested for you listening, what's coming to mind for you? So here's a couple of things I heard Melanie say, and Melanie, please jump in if you're like, that's not, no, Nikki, you missed the mark there. So first thing she does is she's doing some mapping. In NLP, they have a term called mapping across. So you're looking for ways of like how to kind of connect the dots. How does this idea that you have solve the problem for your ideal client? And you're looking for those connectors that how to map that. Is that first step? Yeah.
Yeah.
She's shaking her head. Yes. Okay. And then the next thing she does, she talked about asking her email list. Now, you might not have a huge email list. That's okay. I think you commented, Melanie, you have a pretty substantial email list. And even if you don't have a good email list, like a big email list, that's okay. But here's what I want to comment on is that she's asking potential buyers. That's different than going and asking your mom or your aunt or your cousin
or your spouse.
Or your spouse. Good point. Or your spouse who may tell you from their perspective an honest answer, but it might not be the answer you need. So ask buyers. These are people on your email list or potential buyers. So don't be asking people's opinions who would never be a potential client for you because you're not going to get the feedback that you need. That's just my comment on her, on Melanie's idea there about asking her email list. And then she also again talked about what are the results that it's going to produce and how to create, once you understand what are the results that somebody's going to get, then you create the name of it. Then you create your, you called it magnetic messaging. Is that
I call it get a magnetic message. It's one of my
so good
processes I do. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, she's so good, you guys. Okay. And then she's asking people to give her very specific language because she's asking them specific questions. What does it help you accomplish? And sometimes when you ask somebody that, they're going to give you an answer that's different than what you would say yourself. Like, this is what I intend for it to accomplish. But by asking somebody, like, what does that help you accomplish? Using that language, I think is so crucial in the messaging to attract your ideal client. And then the last thing you commented on is getting really clear on who it's not for so that you're not attracting those types of people that are either not going to pay you money. Like, I always talk about don't chase clients. Like, you shouldn't have to chase people down because if you're chasing people, they're running away from you. So let's not spend a bunch of time and energy trying to earn business from people who are never going to pay us money, and having some clarity around that.
I just want to add, coming back to what helps you feel confident is when you are bringing your message out to people who can and will invest, it is confidence boosting. Yeah. Because even if it's not the right fit, there, there's energy there that's expansive. When you are targeting your message to people who don't have the problem, will never spend the money to solve the problem, or don't have the money and can't solve the problem, it's confidence deflating. Like you start to feel constriction and you start to feel like, what's wrong with me? Why aren't they saying yes? And literally it's just, you don't have your offering and your message positioned right. So one of the ways I really focus on trying to expand my confidence and stay in the confidence is making sure my message is really clear and attractive and irresistible to the clients I want to work with and I know I can help.
Yeah. Ooh, good. Thank you. Okay. So here's my next question is, what are your goals once you've done all these awesome things that you just laid out for us? So, now you've got your message, you know what the offer is, you've probably already established your pricing. What are your goals when you are actually like taking that next step to monetize your superpower?
I'm not sure I fully understand how to answer the question.
Okay. That's okay.
But what comes up for me is my goal is, where do I get my message? So where am I going to be visible with my message to be able to be seen by people who want to work with me? And how can I amplify the impact of it so that it's got momentum, it's got energy, it's got vibrancy, it's got power? So I'm always like, I don't like just do it one way. I'm looking for at least 5 to 10 ways to amplify the reach of that message. So I would say that's probably my number one goal. Mm-hmm. My number 2 goal is I literally wake up every day saying, who needs me? Who's suffering and struggling today? And they cannot get their work out in the world because they're missing this thing that I do well. Monetizing my superpower just being one of those pieces.
Right.
Or monetizing other people's superpowers.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at I'm creating this energy, this like magnetic pull to choose and focus on the places I need to be and say yes, so that I can be where people need me to be to see me. And then my third goal is, how do I become the most grounded, powerful, and capable version of me so that when those people are coming to me, I'm ready, I can hold space for them, and I can quickly understand, are they my right client or not? So that we're using our time wisely. And I'm not I'm not spending a lot of time with somebody who can't or won't say yes, or if it's not going to be a good fit.
Awesome. Okay. So the 3 things that you mentioned here, first is amplifying your message, and specific, like a very specific key takeaway, I would say, is that Melanie talked about 5 to 10 ways to amplify your reach. This isn't just putting your offer up on your website and being like, somebody will buy it someday. It's like, taking that active role to go, what are 5 to 10 ways that I'm going to be able to amplify the reach to get the message out there? Love that. That's such a very specific takeaway. I love also this question of asking yourself, who needs me? That's such a great question. Who needs me? Now it makes me think, have I answered that question for myself recently? I'm going to put that into my own process here and make sure I'm answering that question on a regular basis. So good. Thank you. And then the third thing is, I don't think I got all 3 words. You talked about becoming becoming like your best version of yourself, grounded, capable. You said a third word. Powerful. Okay. So that you can hold space for those people. So what does that take? Now, Melanie may have a very specific process, which I'm going to ask her next, but you also might have your own process. I have my own process that allows for me to be grounded and capable. I've shared it on the podcast before. I've talked about the NLP mandala and making sure that I show up to be the best version of myself in that moment. Like, that's my way to be grounded and capable and powerful when I'm working with clients. So do you have a specific process that you're willing to share with us, Melanie?
Yeah. And it changes and reshapes itself from time to time, depending on what I'm dealing with. But it has to do with a morning routine.
Okay.
So, I wake up, I do visualization. When I go to sleep at night, I do visualization. It has to do with nutrition and exercise. I don't always meet all the exercise goals, just to keep it real.
Yeah.
But I find that does give me fuel.
Okay.
And environment. I am very, very protective of my mental and spiritual environment because we are sponges. We are human sponges. And so I've had to make sure that if I've got something going on, I need to heal it. I need to process it. I need to work it through, because I've found that the number one reason that service providers and people building a business around their expertise, they don't grow and expand and get good clients, is because they're crumbling and they have emotional and physical issues that are pulling them away from amplifying the reach of their message. And so I'm very good about, okay, I got to go clean this up. I need to go work this out and then come back and be grounded. And so that's my process. I think that when we feed our mind very powerful and confidence building information and surround ourselves with highly conscious people who are expanding in the world, it's easier to do that. And so I'm intentional about creating a very protective and powerful container to keep me lifted up.
I love that. I actually did a podcast episode where I talked about protecting your sales mindset. And I also am super protective of my mindset of like who gets access, what information, and what kind of like, what am I consuming, you know, and does that impact me? I'm somebody who, I know this is going to be like offensive to some people, but I don't watch the news because I'm very impacted by it. So, like that I have a routine about like, how do I actually get information filtered to me about what's going on in the world, right? So think about your own mindset and what do you need to do to create this protective, boundary, driven space for yourself. And it may look different for you than it does for me and than it does for Melanie too. But think about that, because like, I think you said this, Melanie, oftentimes you find people are struggling, they're crumbling in some way. And that's usually because they don't have some kind of way to protect that mindset or to take care of the things that are, pulling them away. And we all have things that pull us away from our business or whatever it is we're focusing on at the time. So
yes,
awesome.
Life is always going to happen. Always. And we cannot control what's happening around us. All we can do is control what's happening inside of us. And sometimes we can't even do that. And we have to create some space for the human experience.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of very powerful women leaders, and we're sensitive beings oftentimes.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that when we're doing the work, if we have stuff pulling at us, there's always like little tears and breaks that cause us to not be at our best.
Yes. Yes, totally. Okay. Couple more questions here. How do you know it's time to pay attention to monetizing that superpower?
That's a great question. I would have to say like probably the sign for me is when I recognize my superpower and something my client's struggling with match. So I have lots of superpowers that don't necessarily like translate to something I'm going to monetize. Like I'm a really great cook. My husband loves that I'm, really creative, and I make really delicious, healthy food. And we joke that, if I ever decide to go a different direction in the world, I could become a paleo chef or something like that. But
wow.
So that amazing. Would be monetizing that superpower. I'm not monetizing that superpower right now. That would be a distraction.
Okay. And
so for me, the clue is a dream client, someone I love working with, they're struggling with something, and I have that superpower energy. It's effortless. It's something I enjoy. And conversely, if I start to create offers around something and I start dreading doing it, I'm like, wrong direction. Not a superpower. It may be a strength or something I've developed some capability around, but I don't want to do it all the time.
Mm.
So if it's constricting me, I resent having to do it. I'm like, oh my God, I don't like this client. It's not the thing I want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my superpower. And I have to pull myself out of that.
This is such a good one too, because I get this a lot with clients that will be like, okay, so I feel like I need to do this, Nikki. So I need some, some sales advice around it. And then we work through it and we come up with a plan. And then they're like, next time I meet them, they're like, well, I haven't done anything with it. It's like, okay, so what's getting in the way? And it's like, I just don't want to do it. It's like, well, then don't do something else, right? Like do something else. Those things that I often say, like things that you feel resentful about, it's either time to outsource it in your business if it makes you feel resentful and it has to be done, or stop offering it to clients. I mean, there's a lot of things that all of us could do. Like I could just do straight up NLP processes and offer those. Like I'm super qualified to do it. I've done it enough times, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
So I will bring NLP into my work and I'll bring processes in from time to time with specific clients, but I'm not walking people through or guiding people through processes every single day because it exhausts me.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah. So just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. And it doesn't mean it's your superpower if it's causing that like, feeling.
However,
okay.
One caveat.
Okay.
The work of Gay Hendricks and the Genius Zone, it is important to remember that oftentimes when we haven't fully worked through the process of recognizing a superpower and finding ways to monetize it, we may have things that are lying in that genius zone that feel scary because we're not used to like being paid to do them. And so imposter syndrome may be kicking in, or some deep-seated limiting belief, or a place that you've always put like the ceiling and saying, no, we're not doing that because it brings back some kind of trauma or something like that. And so I just want to recognize that some of my superpowers took me a while to be willing to bring them out in a bigger way, because I had to clear out some stuff that was putting a negative filter around them at first. Okay. And so there's a lot of value to doing the inner work and having a coach to say, hey, is this really not your thing? Or is there something in the way that if we cleared it, it would be exciting for you to monetize that part of your work?
Yeah. Good point. Good point. That actually reminds me of a client who has been struggling, who over the weekend left me this message of like, I'm having the best time. I'm so ready to move forward on this, where it was a lot of dragging the feet. But I think it was a lot of like, I don't feel confident in myself to do it. And then as soon as they did the thing, they realized like, oh, I have this. I've got this. Yeah. And I'm so ready to now put it out into the world. So yeah, good point. So really understanding the difference between the thing that feels, and I'm going to use this word again, the things that maybe you feel resentful are not necessarily the things that maybe you feel fearful about doing, not necessarily the same thing. Would you agree, Melanie?
Agree. Totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Different ends of the vibrational constriction.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how do you know a task is accomplished? Like you have done something, like what's the indicator for you of like, okay, I got it. I did it.
Well, my super handy project management system, when I check that box and we go, it's done.
Okay.
That's an easy one.
Okay.
I think if we think about like, if I'm transferring my superpower to a client, how do I know that's complete? I feel like it's complete when they have taken action on it themselves, or they've completely decided, I'm not going to do that. Like they've closed the door on it. So there's a completion of some kind.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of this one client I worked with for 5 years to get her to really embrace her superpowers. She was in her strengths and she was not in her superpower. And about almost 3.5 to 4 years in, she said, okay, I'm ready. And it took us another year to help her build the confidence and to clear the decks of what she was doing, selling the business she was in, to really help her create a monetizable superpower. And I felt like this huge wave of completion and the task done because she owned it, she created it, she launched it.
Okay. Awesome. So my last question about this, and then I have a couple little more like questions about you, if that's okay, is how do you know when to stop?
Oh, gosh, I'm not sure I know how to stop.
I wish you guys could see Melody's body language just now.
I just completely like leaned back in my chair and went, what a powerful question.
Like, oh my gosh. That was good.
Well, it's interesting because this is my 21st year in business.
Okay.
And I have stopped a lot of things. And when I knew it was time to stop, it was probably way past time to stop.
Okay.
And part of it was resentment.
Okay.
I was just resenting. I went through a period where I basically blew up an entire business, not because I didn't like it, but because I was not in alignment with my great superpower. I had built a business around other people's superpowers because they were on my team. And, there was agreements about how we were going to move forward in the world. And it was a powerful lesson that if you are not in your superpower and it's your business, the business is on shaky ground. And it was a bit powerful, one of the most powerful master classes I ever went through on this planet. I think today I know it's time to stop. And I've been really on a cycle of letting go of things that don't feel expansive. So I have a technique that I do where it's like, is it expanding me? Or if the client feels blocked on something, like we test for, is it aligned or not? Is like, if it's expanding me, even if it's scary, like if I am excited and I'm inspired and there's something that like it just like feels like it opens me up and I get in momentum, I pursue. But if I start feeling blocked, I'm stressed out about it, it stops being fun and it goes on for a few weeks, then I know there's something that needs to change there. And so that would be something I would stop doing, or I would try to like communicate and renegotiate it so it could be a better fit.
Awesome.
And if something doesn't work for more than 6 months, it's time to pull the plug.
Well, that's a pretty concrete, like the 6-month mark. That's a good one. I love that too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing about monetizing your superpower. I always like to close with what I call the little lanyup section. That means a little something extra, if that's a new term. So I'd love to ask a couple of questions about you personally so that people can get to know you a little bit more. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. So my first question is, who inspires you?
A lot of people inspire me. I would say there's different people that inspire me for different things. One of the people that inspires me a lot right now is a friend of mine named Natalie Ledwell. She's co-founder of Mind Movies. And, one of the things that inspires me about her is her tenacity. She just she has this deep commitment to the work she does in the world, and she won't let anything get in her way. And she's one of the people that it gave me a great inspiration and context for the work I do around bold goals, like setting bolder goals. Like watching her set bold goals and go for them and have zero idea how they're supposed to work out has always been really like, it's transformed how I show up. She literally taught me the power of stretching beyond what I know how to do and that being okay when I'm freaking out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but I know I'm supposed to do it. And just walking the path in uncertainty is okay.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we got to check her out too. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
Probably a lot. Maybe the thing that surprises people a lot is that I'm like everybody else and I have fears and I have doubts. And sometimes I want to like stop my business because I'm like, do I really want to keep doing this? And then the next day I go, yeah, of course. Like that was a silly moment. And recognizing that because I'm somebody, if you follow human design, I have emotional authority, which means my emotions have a huge impact over my decision-making, which is why I never make snap decisions that I'm emotional about.
Okay.
Because they're not always the best decision because my emotions are too high to really like sort out all of the components. And so I try to be more forthcoming that I have imposter syndrome some days. I'm pushing my boundaries all the time. So I have doubts and fears and I make a lot of mistakes and a lot of stuff doesn't work. But I keep getting up every day and I have the resilience to keep moving forward because I'm more committed to serving my clients and having a business that I love than I am the fears and the doubts and the limitations.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. What is something exciting going on in your business right now?
There's always about 10 things that are happening we're excited about. We have a giveaway coming up, which depending on when this airs or you listen to it may or may not be relevant, but I do a lot of work around creating your own economy. And so I get really excited about that because it's such a empowering place to be, to recognize that we can create our reality, which includes our economy, no matter what's going on around us. That would be the NLP training coming in through me.
Yes.
But like on a really small, but really huge thing, we're rebranding the look and feel of all of my work. It is a massive undertaking that my team is going through, but it's exciting because, when you find like what I call like the color match of your brand, like the vibrational color match of the work you do, it feels exciting because you're like, oh yeah, it's like another way in which you amplify the energy of the work you do. So we're right in the middle of that. By the time this airs, it will probably be done. Okay. So that's super exciting because it's a long time coming.
Well, congratulations. That is big. That's big. I'm
terrified and I'm excited at the same time because it's so much work.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Last question is, how can the person listening right now connect with you?
Oh, well, MelanieBenson.com is our site. It's the best place to come. And we've talked a lot about authority and really shifting the energy from being someone who has expertise and maybe feeling invisible or feeling like you're stuck in imposter syndrome. I have a resource that I'm happy to share for free. It is my roadmap of what I coach and mentor people through to move out of that best kept secret mode and into being transforming your wealth and transforming your wisdom into wealth and being highly paid authority. And you can find that at authorityamplifiers.com.
Okay. So check that out. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all that you shared. I'm very honored that you said yes. And I hope for you as the listener that you found great value. There were so many good nuggets in there that I'm going to listen to this episode when it airs so I can go back and pick up more of them. And I took a ton of notes. So thank you so much, Melanie, for being here.
Thank you. And that's a great compliment.
Thank you. And thank you to you, the listener, for being here. And I would love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media, connect with Melanie, and let me know, what was your takeaway from today? What was your big aha? It's been super fun to hear from listeners, especially about the Mastering Excellence series, what their takeaways are and how they have implemented something that they've heard on the show. So I would love to hear from you too. Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.